Good morning. Today I have the lovely Charlie Gallagher with me. Hi, Charlie. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Morning. It's been a while since I've been called lovely. I'll take that. My name's Charlie Gallagher. Thank you for that. And I'm the author of, I think, 16, maybe 17. I lose count now. Crime fiction thrillers. And I have a book out on Thursday, which is a second in a series called Lethal Game. I mentioned they're all crime thrillers, and they sort of come from a career, 12, 13 years that I had as a police officer. So that kind of inspired me to write, and I'm fortunate that it's become something that I now do full time.
Yep. And you want to do the whole promo bit now? Hold your book up and tell us what it's called. And
Yes. Yeah, I did mention it briefly, but yeah, let's do a whole bit. Otherwise, I'll forget, because you know what I'm like. The new book, it's called Lethal Game, and I do rather love the cover. I didn't do that. I never do. The covers are always someone else's bit, but they do a fantastic job at Avon. So Lethal Game, it's out on Thursday. It's currently 99p as a pre-order for people that download their books, and it's available everywhere to pre-order. And it's probably the quickest paced thriller I've done, and I've done some pretty quick ones. So this one kind of starts with a bang and never lets up. And I don't plan my books or write sort of any structure before. I just tend to sort of leap in. So that's not an intentional thing. It just kind of, the pace just never dropped. So I was exhausted finishing it, and some of the reviews have suggested that people are a little exhausted reading it. So it's been lovely. It's been good to see.
yeah, it's different as well.
Different. Well, that's good to hear.
Good different, obviously.
Yes, because there is good different and there is bad different, isn't there? So a good different, I'll take that.
Yeah. And it just does make me worry about, the way you think, really.
Yes, again, I get that quite a lot, but this one seems to have made that bit resurface. People are always more concerned about people I live with than me. But my wife's reading it at the moment, actually, and she will occasionally tut. She reads it, sort of last thing at night, so she'll tut and have a glance over at me, little shake of the head. I don't know if that means she's enjoying it or not, or if she's worried about herself, or I don't know. But yeah, it's a bit different. I mean, the concept is that two people, the book starts with two people restrained and separate from each other, and then they're forced to race each other to a telephone where they need to make a phone call. And the first person that makes the telephone is allowed to get on with their life, is able to get on with their life, and the person that loses isn't, to put it nicely. And that's the kind of the concept that starts the book, and it's the central concept. And of course, the rest of the book then explains the motivations and the reason why they were in that situation. And the game's going to play all over again as well. So it gets quite like I said, the pace doesn't let up. It's a very quick book, and I thoroughly enjoyed writing it for that reason, I think.
And it's very twisty and more interlinked than you realise as you carry on reading, which is quite cool. And one of the things about your books actually is they're very clever. Like, you don't realise what's linked until later on.
I think that's very kind. It's actually there are an awful lot of twists in it, and it's quite difficult to talk about. This isn't the first time I've been asked to talk about it on a sort of promotional point of view, and to talk about it without giving away bits of the twist, it's almost impossible. Like, that's why I talk about the start, and then that's it. I leave it at that.
Yeah.
Which is I'm sure it's hopefully a sign of a good thriller. But it's the sort of book I like to read, and I've always had that as an attitude. I write books that I'd like to read myself. I don't like reading it now because I've read it about 10 or 15 times along with the edit process. But if I was picking it up from scratch, I think it would certainly be the sort of thing that I would want to read. I like twists and turns. I like never really knowing where it's going. I like books told from different points of view as well. So you get to know some things that other characters don't, and then that comes together and it's significant. So yeah, hopefully, and it's got a big ending as well, which I like. I don't think it fizzles out. I think there's quite a big ending. So yeah, I'm really proud of it. And hopefully, I mean, early reviews have been really good. And if anyone's watching that's left a review, thanks so much for taking the time. Donna, you included, actually, I think you've left a review. That, you know, they mean the world to us. So people have been coming back to me direct, have been putting up reviews on NetGalley, and they will on Amazon, I'm sure, from Thursday. And it just, not only is a massive shot in the arm, but obviously it's a big boost for the launch when other people see those words. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, I wrote my review and messaged you, didn't I? And said, you're so lovely and you write stuff like this, like what the hell?
Yeah, well, I've got about an hour of lovely in me every day, you know, per day. So this is the hour, and then I'm horrible for the rest of the day. So that's all. Yeah, I'll go away and write a bit more and I'll be horrible again.
One of my new fun questions that I like to ask, which will be interesting from an ex-policeman, is if you were to kill victims in a book, how would you kill them
If I was to kill victims,
in a book?
oh goodness me, I mean, I've come up with a fair amount of ways. I really don't know. I mean, I don't know if I've got a favourite. Sometimes people ask me, you know, have you got a favourite method that you've killed people? I don't know. Because I'm such a lovely fella, I think it would have to be something a bit detached, you know. So you're talking running someone down in a car. God, this is a strange conversation, isn't it? People are going to report on me because you can you're a bit detached from what you're doing, if that makes sense. Whereas, you know, if you're up close and personal with a knife or something like that, then that, I don't think I'd be capable of doing that. So I don't know. I'd like to come up with something imaginative on the spot, but I saved them for my books. So yeah, I just run someone down. I'm good at cleaning cars as well. I know exactly what to do.
Good to know. Noted.
Yeah.
Some people I ask and they know the answer just like that. Like, okay, obviously
Yeah.
never thought about that then, have you?
Yeah, see, that's more worrying. That's more worrying. I mean, from a police officer's point of view, the best way to get away with murder, and some people might be taking notes now, but it's to make it look like it wasn't a murder at all. Because once a death is investigated as suspicious and as a murder, the resources and everything around it, the forensic elements and the teams that are put on it, you don't really stand a chance. I mean, the resources are incredible and the investigation is massively complicated and very well done by very clever people, which is why I left. But if it looks like a suicide, and I know that's been done a number of times, it's quite a regular trope in murder mystery books, but a suicide or an accident or something like that, that's the way to get away with it. So if ever you need to know.
Also noted, thank you.
Yeah, noted, yeah.
And I know the forensic stuff as well, so, you know.
Yes, of course. Yes, you're a student of the forensics, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's some of the forensic things. I'll tell you what, the problem with forensics, which is probably not a problem really, it's a good thing, is that it's so good. It's actually quite difficult these days to write a crime thriller that where, you know, you need people to get away with it for at least a little while, you know, and it's really difficult because forensics are incredible. I mean, if you used to plot a murder, which I do in a fictional world, not ever in factual world, I have to keep saying that. You know, you've really got to have massive considerations, and even then, you probably won't do enough. So sometimes there's a little bit of artistic license in what you write. You know, actually, you might have been caught a bit earlier. And I don't like making the police look incompetent for obvious reasons. Sometimes you kind of have to rely on that a little bit, but generally, but they're not in real life. That's, you know, some of the investigations are incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on the back of that, if you were to be killed in a fictional world, who would you want to investigate your murder?
Well, blimey. Well, I used to work with some detectives, and I know that they're, you know, how good they are. So, I mean, you know, some of the Kent police major crime detectives would probably investigate because if it happened in Kent anyway, and I don't tend to stray out because it's a dangerous world. So yeah, I'm quite happy with Kent police detectives taking on that role. But I mean, if you was looking at a fictional one, I don't know really. Who was the one from Murder, She Wrote? Jessica Fletcher. It only ever took her 45 minutes, didn't it? So I reckon, do you know what I mean? Or was it even half an hour, I think, Murder, She Wrote? I can't remember. But she used to have it pretty much sewn up within 40 minutes. So let's have her. I'll have Jessica Fletcher. And you don't mess with Jessica Fletcher, do you? You know what I mean? She wasn't built massive and she wasn't particularly a fighter, but she terrified me. I'd admit it. Sat in front of Murder, She Wrote. I missed that.
I'm sure it's on somewhere. One of
Oh,
the
no doubt.
cable
No doubt.
channels. I know
Yeah.
Columbo's still on, so.
Oh, really? Blimey, yeah. Yeah, no, I'd have Jessica Fletcher over Columbo any day, I think.
Oh, really? Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, Columbo
like
likes a
Columbo.
bit of a show at the end. It's all about him, isn't it? You know what I mean? Whereas I think Jessica Fletcher would just get there and say, you know, that's what happened, and then chuck him in jail. I'm out. I'm off down the pub. Do you think she goes to the pub?
No, I reckon she's sitting in a chair with a glass of wine or something,
Yeah.
just contemplating life.
Yeah, I think you're right. So her, I'll have her, please. And if and when it happens.
Okay, noted again. And just as a random aside, Malcolm Hollandrake decided to interview me, and he asked me how I would kill victims, and I said I'd stab them 100 times.
100 times?
Yeah, I just
Goodness
wanted to
me.
be sure. Yeah.
I mean, anything more than 3 or 4 is a waste, really. I mean, job's done.
It doesn't quite get rid of the anger, does it?
100 times?
I don't know whether.
They'd be stabbed less if you pushed them through a combine harvester. That's incredible. That's a frenzy.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from, and I don't think Malcolm was expecting that answer either, and I don't think he's quite got over it even now.
No, I bet he hasn't. 100 times, blimey. Forensics have a field day with that.
Yeah, have to do it sort of different strengths and stuff, so they got confused and thought it was more than one person.
Blimey, you really have thought about it.
I haven't. It just came to my head, but yeah. So we don't give spoilers to your most recent book. Out of all the books you've written, what's been the most fun scene and what's been the most difficult?
Blimey. Fun scene. I quite like the end. I mean, right in the end is obvious because, you know, finally the work's done. So there's always a little bit of relief along with everything else. But I wrote the end of which one was it? It was the final book. So it'd be The Deadly Houses, the final one of the Maddie Ives series. And when the investigation was over and complete, it was a very nasty final day. Everyone was devastated, and the inspector took them out onto the roof of custody. And what he did then was put down some golf balls on the top of, because custody's a flat roof in the nick that I used, and all of the team took turns at hitting a golf ball out into the car park, and the target was the TAC team van, and whoever got it the least distance in their strike buys the round. And that's true. That happened in an investigation that I was part of. So it was a pleasure to write. That was at Chatham. It used to be a major crime hub, and they were hitting golf balls out into the car park, and a senior member of staff's car got hit. I can say it now because I'm out, so it's fine. But it was just, we'd had a bad day, and it was, you know, for obvious reasons, it's things that can go on, it can be quite horrific, and it just dissipated in 10, 15 minutes of messing around with your mates. And it kind of reminds you that, you know, as bad as the world can be, it can also be pretty amazing. And all you need really is your mates around you. So that I wrote that at the end of Deadly Houses, and that finished that series. And it might even be a reason why I haven't gone back to it yet. I've had a 7th book planned for a little while, but it just felt like sort of the perfect ending. So I think that's probably the most fun. What was the other question? What was the other part?
The most difficult.
Blimey. I mean, they're all difficult. I have to say, actually, the beginning of Lethal Game, the opening, the prologue was difficult. I mean, it wasn't difficult to write, but at the same time, I really wanted it to be right, if that makes sense. So I must have done it 4 or 5 times, which is quite unusual for me. Normally, I'll get the bones down in the first draft, and then the second is just you know, changing subtle bits. But that was probably 4 or 5 rewrites completely. In fact, I deliberately you opened other documents and wrote it again from scratch, which is the one that finally went in there, just because I'd had a few goes at it. I knew what I wanted to happen and how, but it wasn't quite frantic enough. That opening needed to be completely frantic. Well, that was at least the idea. And I wanted it to leave a real impression. So yeah, that took 4 or 5 goes. So that's probably, that is the most I've ever rewritten a scene. So yeah, I think that would probably be the most difficult.
Well, it was worth it because it is frantic.
Yeah. I saw, I don't know if you've ever seen a film, 28 Weeks Later, I think it was a zombie film. And there's an opening scene to that, which is a family out in an isolated farmhouse, and the zombies find them and they start attacking the house. And the whole scene follows this family trying to get out their own house and get to a boat. And it's done to music, and it's just incredible. And I remember, I goodness how long that film was out. It's probably a good 10 years ago. I remember watching it at the cinema, and by the time that opening sequence had finished, it was probably maybe 4 or 5 minutes, my jaw was on the floor, and I thought, that is incredible. What a scene, what a way to start a film. I mean, everyone, it just grabbed them by the intimate parts, and there was no way you was going to look away. Even probably most of us didn't even blink in the cinema room. And I remember at the time thinking, I want an opening like that at some point, and I've never really had it. There was a quick one in Then She Ran, which was one of the earlier George Elms books. That was very frantic and similar in a way, but this one feels like my 28 Weeks Later moment was close as I can get to it. So yeah, I'm really pleased with it, and it is massively frantic, and I hope it grabs people by the intimate parts.
It will. And then near the end as well, that one chapter, I think, just like you're like, I need to breathe at some point, but you're just holding your breath because you're like, oh my god, it's so tense.
Yeah, the finale. Yeah, again, that isn't something I've had planned or isn't inspired from anywhere. It was just like I said, as I was going through the book, it just kept speeding up, and then that last scene just kind of made sense and fell out my face, really. So that was pretty much one draft with just a few changes. So yeah, I was pleased with that. I'm really pleased with the way it ended. Sometimes you get you can have amazing starts, but if the ending doesn't do it justice, then it's not quite going to work as a complete project. And also you can have a soggy middle, which is really quite common. And you do have to have parts of the book where you're giving backstories to characters, or where you're progressing the story, or where you're giving procedure, and naturally it has to slow down a little. There's nothing you can do about that. You can spread it out amongst the book, and you can sandwich it between quicker scenes, or so use it to give people a chapter to catch their breath almost. But it does have to happen. So the way you structure the book is very important when it comes to pace. And I always do a first draft, and then I'll go back. First draft without considering pace. It doesn't matter to me at that point, just getting the story down. And then I'll change the order of the scenes around, or shorten slow scenes if I have to, or whatever. There's a number of techniques you can do. But with this one, it was, like I said, it was just flat out. There doesn't seem to be any slow parts. But I don't think it loses anything for it.
Well, you got a glowing 5-star review from Leslie Lloyd, and I think we both know that she doesn't give them out lightly. So
she doesn't. I mean, not that I'm counting, but I think that's 3 in a row now, because the Deadly Houses that I talked about was when I think the first one that Leslie read of mine, and then she did the same for The Friend, which was lovely, and then obviously for Lethal Game. So yeah, she doesn't give them out lightly, and she's super critical in a very productive way. And these are the sort of people that I look forward to hearing from. And there are people that I will look out for their names again next to reviews, or if they come back to me direct, then obviously, I'll wait for their feedback, and Leslie's among them for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, luckily it was 5 stars. Otherwise, that could have got awkward, couldn't it?
Yeah. She kept messaging me, "Have you read it yet? Have you read it yet?" I'm like, "No, I've got so many other books, but I will. I'm getting to it."
Yeah, she's so supportive, and she'll message me direct and say things like, "Have you done this?" And it'll be a list of marketing things, and I'm like, "No, because I'm not very good at it." So no, I haven't. But thanks. I do try. I do everything that I can. But we had a chat briefly before, didn't we? And before recording, and marketing isn't my thing. And I was talking to you about self-published authors and how much respect I have for those people, because the marketing, the pushing the books, saying all the right things, I can't do it. I'm just not that wired that way. I can make up stories all day long, but I need someone else to then do something with them. Otherwise, they just flounder around, really. It's really hard work, the other side of of being an author when you're self-published. And I feel very, very lucky that I don't have to do too much of that. I mean, clearly I still do my own social media bits, and I have a mailing list, and you know, spending a time speaking to people like you. As much as I enjoy it, I wouldn't organise it unless you push me to, because I'm just not very good at it.
What was I just going to ask you? Oh, when you're editing, what's your most overused word or phrase?
Now, definitely, I use the word now a lot. There's other ones that are cut out. What was the phrase that I've become aware of? It will come to me in a minute. But I mean, there's lots of them. I will say that. And the difficult thing sometimes is trying to make everyone's voice sound a bit different, because obviously I speak the way I speak, and you know, if I'm trying to communicate something, I have a way of doing that. It comes very naturally. So what you'll try to do is make sure that all your characters don't have that same way of communicating, because then, you know, they all blend into one. So that can be quite difficult. And I concentrate a lot on dialogue, which means I miss all the phrases that I repeat in stuff that isn't dialogue, in just the prose. Yeah, what was that? It will come to me. It's probably written down in my notepad here. Because then you just do a word search, and you know, when I've finished a book and it's 110, 120,000 words, and then you think, right, this phrase, and you type it in the search thing, and it comes up on the side, how many times it's come up, and it comes up and it's like 270 results. And you're like, oh, that's a lot. And it's, you know, it's quite a niche phrase, or one that's not used too much, and I've completely forgotten. But yeah, if I put in the word now, it's in a million times. It's on every page. So I try and be aware of that. But I mean, I have a very, very good editing team. Cara, who works with Avon at HarperCollins, she is now the editor that works with me, and she's superb. And they spot things that I'd never even considered, and repeated words and constantly used phrases and words is one of those. Yeah, so always get a good editor. Always. Can't recommend that enough.
And I have to not disappoint Leslie and ask about the children's book that you started writing during lockdown.
Yes, she's just about there as a first draft. I'm really pleased with that, actually, and we've written it in a way that I say we, myself and my daughter, we've written it in a way where I'd like it to become a series. I write series anyway, so that kind of comes a bit naturally to me, I think. But I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a complete story, but there's certainly a way for the flatulent aliens to come back and appear again in a new adventure. We've really enjoyed it, me and the daughter. It's been a lovely experience, actually. I don't know what I'm going to do with it now. It needs editing and a little bit of TLC from me, and then from a professional, I'll certainly get a professional involved. But editing a children's book's a bit different, so Cara won't be interested. And I'm not sure that Avon will either, because they're an imprint that do adult literature. So obviously they're part of HarperCollins, who have a child's bit. So when there's something to show them, I will, and we'll see if anything comes from that. But if not, I don't know what I'll do with it. It'll have to get out at some point. So if I end up self-publishing it, then I will, for sure. Just because my daughter would love to see it as a book. But yeah, it's going well. Thank you. It's just about there as a first draft.
What was your favourite first as an author?
My favourite first?
Yeah, like your first, holding your first book, or your first deal, or your first review.
Oh, blimey. I think probably everyone says the same, but it's the physical version of the book, I think. And probably the one that came through from Avon, although Joffy did a great job of my physical books, they are predominantly an online download ebook publisher, and they do very, very well at it. Whereas Avon, working with HarperCollins, are more very much online as well, but they're more geared towards the physical product, which means that their covers, I think they're incredible. I love them to pieces. And yeah, when The Friend came through, and it was from one of the big five publishers, sorry, and a physical book with my name on the front, or my pseudonym, I was beside myself, really. That was a moment. I mean, there's been a number of moments. It's been a wonderful career. Can I call it career? I think I can, yeah. 3 or 4 years. But yeah, I think that was that was a big moment.
Yeah, 16 or 17 books, that's definitely a career.
Yeah, I suppose it is. Yeah. It's always been a hobby, you know, because it started as a hobby. I know I do it full time, so it's my job, but I don't feel like I'm going to work. You know, I'm at the office now that I rent a desk space in a communal working area in Folkestone, a place called the Workshop, which is where I am now. And you know, so I come here 5 days a week, and I have a working day like I used to, and I think I need that sort of that structure to my working day. But it doesn't feel like coming to work. It's great. Oh, and I know I told you about the slide, but we weren't recording. So this is, let me show you. This building has a slide from the floor above to this one. So I don't know how I ever get any work done. I'm mainly just sliding.
That's because men are just big children.
Absolutely. I have no, I'm not even going to defend myself on that.
Doesn't your Katniss annoying you and climbing all over you while you're writing?
Well, again, he's a big reason why I've had to move out into an office during the day. I mean, he's just a nightmare. And the problem is he's only getting bigger. He's just getting bigger. So now if he lays down on top of the laptop, I mean, there isn't a laptop anymore. It's just, you know, sometimes I'll be looking for it. Where's the laptop? Of course, because it gets nice and warm. You know, if I set the lid down to make a cup of tea or make some lunch or whatever, I come back and there's just this great big oversized ginger thing laying on top of it. He's wonderful. I love him to pieces, but just don't tell the wife because I pretend to hate him.
Oh.
Secretly, I think he's great.
Yeah, that's another man thing. They always pretend they hate cats, and actually they just don't.
He just annoys me all day. So I really should, and because it was her idea, and it turns out to be a good one, and I don't want that. Yeah, I have to pretend to dislike it. And the Spaniel was my idea, and that's turned out to probably be a bad one because he's a nightmare. I love him to pieces, but he's got a clumsy bum. So yeah, of the two animals, I think she's probably winning.
Yeah, that's annoying.
Yeah.
Oh. I think I've asked you before, but what do you enjoy doing when you're not writing? Especially now we're out of lockdown, actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously it takes up a lot of my time, but when I'm not writing, I mean, I like the sporty side of things. I play a bit of football, and I like riding me. I've got a road bike, so I'm one of those people in Lycra that you're swearing at when you're being held up in a car. I like doing all that, and the gym as well, and walking the Spaniel, obviously, because he's a big bundle of energy, and obviously spending time with the family. The best thing about the change of career is that I'm no longer a shift worker. Shift work is difficult for a number of reasons. Not just you're not there at sort of times when you would be having family time normally, so in the evenings or all day Sunday, whatever. But when you are there, you're constantly exhausted. Working shifts is hard. I wouldn't recommend it if you don't have to. So yeah, now I get tonight we've got parents' evening. And we've got a carol service that I've just been made aware of coming up next month. So I'll be able to go to all of these things and nativity plays, and I don't miss a thing now, which is wonderful. So yeah, that's been real positive.
So Lethal Game was book 2 in the series. So have you got book 3 planned already?
Book 3 is written. It's with it's with the editor. So that's going to go through a structural edit now, and then it will come back with lots of red pen all over it. But that's done, and I'm really excited about book 3. It felt like a natural follow-on, so I didn't stop. I don't generally stop anyway. Once I finish one, I generally bowl on to the next. And book 3, before I'd finished it, I'd already started 4 because again, I feel like I've got a real. Because starting a series is very, very difficult, but once you've started it and you get to know your characters sort of by 1 or 2 books in, and I'm at that point now where I can I've got a central concept, and then the characters I know will fit in quite naturally. So I'd already bowled onto book 4, which is what I'm doing now. I'm 20,000 words into the 4th, trying to get ahead so that when the book 3 comes back for its edit process, that will stop me dead. So I'll go back to that. But 4 is already taking shape. It's very different to the other 3. So I'm a little concerned already that it's too different, but it's a strong idea, I think. So we'll see what the editors say about that. But yeah, so 3's done. Long. That was a very short question with a very long answer that didn't need to be at all. It's done.
Oh, that's cool. You carry on. And do you know, are you going to carry on after book 4 with this series?
I think so. I mean, I've written 2 series before, and they were 6 books and 7 books respectively, and they both finished at the point where they felt like they were finished, if that makes sense. They kind of did full circle, or at least the main character's protagonist come full circle, so I stopped. I think the same will happen with this series at some point, but all the while I've got... what I'm doing a little bit different this time around is very much drip feeding the characters, the main characters. So I'm building characters that, you know, you learn a little bit of their backstory every time, as I've done before, but this time a little bit slower. So, for example, book 4 I mentioned is quite different. The police don't really feature at all at the moment, which will need to change. I mean, they are in there, but at the moment they're not really featuring. So you won't get to learn too much more about them. But by that point, book 3, for example, there's a lot of backstory, a lot of character building. Of the main characters and some of the back characters. That's quite an Eileen story, actually, who's a character that I introduced in Lethal Game and fell in love with. So she features quite heavily in the 3rd. So again, a short question with a mumbling long reply, but I don't know is the honest answer. And obviously that's down to the publisher as well. If they keep publishing it as a series, then I think I'll keep putting books out. It's been a very pleasurable experience working with them. And all the while, we both think the books are the quality that they should be. I think we'll keep going. I'm really enjoying it, which is what matters.
Yes, that's good to know. It does help.
Yeah, it does.
Well, I don't think I have any more questions for you, unless you think there's anything I haven't asked you that you want to tell us.
No, not at all. I think I've shown myself up as a cold-hearted serial killer. I think I've, got everyone's a little bit concerned about that. Hopefully the wife doesn't watch this one back. Or any of her family, or the police. Apart from that, it's gone very, very well. Thanks very much, as ever, for taking the time to fit me in. Because obviously, the book being out this week, this is great timing for me, and hopefully, someone will watch this and be intrigued. And obviously, with Amazon, you can download a sample, can't you? Which I think will cover that prologue. So without paying anything, which is always my favourite price.
Although, to be honest, 99p is an absolute steal for that book. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, the pricing is a whole different conversation. I don't fix the pricing, and also I hear from I've got people that read the books all over the world, which is a lovely thing, of course, but it is priced differently, and that's not my doing either. So if someone's watching from Australia, for example, some have been in contact. It's I think around $6 or $7 in Australia as a download, which is considerably more than it is in the UK. So I am genuinely sorry about that. It isn't my decision. It isn't even HarperCollins. They have their own Australian arm, and they set their books. They price their books accordingly. So I'm sure there's a reason behind that, but I don't know what it is personally. But it's still worth it. I would say that.
So before we go, do you just want to hold your book up again and remind everyone what it looks like?
Yes, let's do that. So this one is Lethal Game. It's a wonderful cover, and hopefully you'll enjoy the contents just as much. Thanks again for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
No problem.